Two people cross $100,000 on the exact same Friday. Same zip code, same age, same industry. Picture the first one, Chase. He's sitting in his car in the parking lot after work, staring at the direct deposit notification, and he actually laughs out loud. Not because he's celebrating, because he spent the drive home mentally adding up what he owes this month, and the number he just got paid still isn't enough. Now picture the second one, Melly. Same notification, same amount, same Friday. She sees it, closes her phone, and goes for a walk. She's been at $96,000 for 2 years, like the extra $4,000 didn't change her life. It confirmed it. Same income, same city, same paycheck, hitting the same day. One of them just got richer, the other one just got trapped, and the difference between them has almost nothing to do with what you'd assume. My name is Nick, and today we're going to break down why crossing $100,000 a year quietly rewires your entire financial life, and why, for most people, it's the exact salary where the math of making it collapses under its own weight. Let's start with the part nobody wants to talk about because it sounds like complaining. The $100,000 salary is not what it used to be. It's not even close. $100,000 today has the purchasing power of roughly $36,000 in 1980. Let that sit for a second. The number that boomers associated with yachts, beach houses, and retiring at 55 is now what millennials are using to pay for a one-bedroom apartment with a dishwasher that sounds like it's trying to escape. $100,000 in 1990 is equivalent to about $245,000 today. $100,000 in 2000 is about $188,000. Even $100,000 in January of 2020, just 6 years ago, is worth about $124,000 today. The six-figure club didn't just get more crowded, the wallpaper came off and everyone realized the lounge was smaller than they remembered. In 1992, about 5% of American households earned six figures. Today, it's roughly 43%, nearly half. The number that used to symbolize making it is now the median experience for a huge chunk of the workforce. Median individual income is still around $53,000. Median household income is around $84,000. So culturally, $100,000 is the line. Crossing it feels like you're supposed to be winning, which is exactly why what happens next lands so hard. Let's talk about the tax situation because this is where the illusion breaks first. A single filer making $100,000 in 2025 lands squarely in the 22% federal marginal bracket. Your federal tax is roughly $13,000. Your FICA adds another $7,650. That's already about $20,000 gone before a single state has touched your paycheck. Factor in state income tax and the geography penalty kicks in. Texas or Florida, you take home around $6,575 per month. New York City, you take home around $5,871 per month. That's an $8,400 annual gap purely from where your apartment happens to be. Same job, same title, same role, and the city you live in decides whether your vacation fund exists. But the taxes aren't even the real tax story. The real tax story is what you lose access to the moment you cross certain lines that were quietly drawn to catch you. And $100,000 sits almost exactly on top of those lines. Here's where it gets genuinely funny in a tragic sort of way. The federal government has this mental model where $100,000 is wealthy. So the moment you approach it, a bunch of things you used to qualify for just evaporate. The student loan interest deduction, gone above $100,000 single. The American Opportunity Tax Credit, up to $2,500 per student, starts phasing out at $80,000, fully gone by $90,000. The Lifetime Learning Credit, same phase out, gone. The traditional IRA deduction if you have a 401k at work, fully phased out around $89,000 single. Poof. The Savers Credit, you aged out of that at $39,500. The Earned Income Tax Credit, you've been too rich for that for years, so if you're a single person who crossed $100,000, congratulations. You now pay full tuition on student loan interest, full tuition on education credits, and full tuition on your retirement contributions. It's like The IRS threw a surprise party for you, crossing $100,000, and the only gift is a slightly larger tax bill and a note that says, "You're rich now, figure it out." Nobody sends you a letter, nobody explains any of this. Your CPA just charges you more because your return got more complicated. The federal government decided you're rich, your bank account did not get the memo, and the gap between those two opinions is where your anxiety lives for the rest of the year. And now we arrive at the punchline, because the place this gap hurts most is the place you actually live. At the current 30-year mortgage rate of around 6.3%, a $100,000 salary using the traditional 28% rule with 20% down can afford a home priced at roughly $360,000. That happens to be almost exactly the US median home value. But the median sale price of a home that actually sold recently is around $437,000, meaning the average $100,000 earner can buy the average priced home, but not the average home that people are actually buying right now. Now let's take this across real metros. San Jose, median home $1.5 million, income needed $420,000. Los Angeles, $960,000, income needed $262,000. Seattle, $211,000. Boston, $196,000. New York Metro, $186,000. Denver, $160,000. Miami, $135,000. Austin, $123,000. Only once you get to places like Chicago or Cleveland does a $100,000 salary actually buy you the median home in that city. And if you rent, the math is just as ugly. The median one bedroom in Manhattan is $4,380 per month. That's 54% of a $100,000 gross salary going to rent on a one-bedroom apartment. Not a house, not a place with a yard, a one-bedroom. And here's the most absurd stat I found in my research, and I need you to sit with this one because it's the single cleanest summary of what's happened to the American middle class. In San Francisco, a single person earning up to $108,300 is officially classified by the federal government, by HUD, as low income. Let me repeat that because I need you to sit with it. A six-figure earner qualifies for subsidized affordable housing in the city where they actually live. That's not a policy failure. That's the ceiling falling on the floor. If that doesn't tell you how warped the meaning of $100,000 has become, nothing will. And stay with me, because the part most people don't see coming is what happens inside a household that's already crossed that line and is still drowning. Because on paper, they're winning. In the group chat, they're the ones who made it. But behind their front door, something else is going on entirely, and the data on this is so wild that most people refuse to believe it the first time they hear it. Let me show you what all of this looks like inside an actual household, because abstract numbers don't hit the way a real scenario does. Meet a couple we'll call the Parkers, two working professionals in their early 30s pulling in a combined $200,000 a year, two $100,000 earners. By every cultural metric in America, this is upper middle class. This is what your parents told you to aim for. They live in a decent East Coast metro, not New York, not San Francisco, somewhere normal. They bought a modest house when rates were still reasonable. They drive two paid-off cars and they have two kids in daycare. Gross income, $200,000. After federal taxes, FICA, and state taxes, they're taking home around $12,800 per month. Sounds great. Then reality shows up. The mortgage, insurance, property taxes, maintenance, and utilities on the modest house run about $3,600 per month. Daycare for two kids at the national average is about $2,500 per month. In their metro, closer to $3,200. Two car insurance policies, $280. Their own health insurance contribution through work, $570. Student loans from their 2 degrees, $700 combined. Groceries for a family trying to eat like functional adults, $900. Utilities on that bigger house, $350. Gas and transportation, $400. We are now at $12,400 spent on a $12,800 take home. This is before clothing, before any streaming service, before a single dinner out, before birthday gifts, before the existence of Amazon. And then it's Monday night, and one of them opens the laundry room and the dryer is making a noise. Not a breaking down noise, a pre-breaking down noise, the kind where, in 6 months you're buying a dryer. And they both just stand there looking at it because neither of them wants to be the one who says, we can't afford that right now on $200,000 a year. Then it's Wednesday and their 4-year-old needs new shoes and they actually have to think about it, not whether they can buy shoes, they can, but whether to buy the $40 shoes at Target or the $22 shoes on Amazon, because that $18 difference is the entire discretionary line item in this week's budget. That's the part nobody warns you about. Not the big crises, the small decisions that start feeling heavy. These aren't people buying espresso machines off Instagram ads. They're people who just bought the cheapest reasonable version of an adult life, and somehow the math still doesn't work. This is what lifestyle creep looks like when it's already finished its work. Not a Lamborghini, a Honda CR-V, and a house you can almost pay for. And here's the data that makes the Parkers make sense. Paycheck to paycheck living by income bracket is not a straight line. It's a U-curve. People making under $50,000, about 57% of them say they live paycheck to paycheck. Makes sense. People making between $100,000 and $200,000, only 25% say they do. That's the sweet spot. Then something weird happens. People making $300,000 to $500,000 a year, 41% say they live paycheck to paycheck. People making over $500,000, 40% say the same thing. Think about that for a second. Your household making $180,000 is statistically less stressed than your dentist's household making $400,000. Turns out the dentist has a boat, and the boat has feelings. This is Goldman Sachs data, not a TikTok rumor. Every raise you get lands inside a culture that has already priced in the raise. You get to $100,000 and suddenly the algorithm shows you $7,000 Pelotons and kitchen renovations and a slightly nicer apartment in a slightly nicer neighborhood with slightly nicer restaurants. Your friends upgrade, your expectations upgrade, your definition of a normal Tuesday night upgrades, and the raise that was supposed to buy you freedom instead buys you a marginally more expensive version of the same life. You're working harder, you're paying more taxes, and the actual financial distance between who you are now and who you were at $65,000 is shockingly small. Now let's add kids to the equation because this is where the math stops being funny. The national average cost of infant daycare in 2026 is about $17,270 per year per kid. In DC, $24,000. In NYC, around $26,000. 2 kids at the national average, $30,000 annually. In high cost of living cities, 2 kids easily hit $60,000 to $72,000 per year. That's an entire $100,000 salary, pre-tax, just for the privilege of being able to go to work. And here's the punchline nobody says out loud. The dependent care flexible spending account, the one tax-advantaged account designed to help with exactly this expense, was capped at $5,000 from 1986 until 2025, 39 years without an inflation adjustment. It finally got raised to $7,500, which sounds generous until you realize it covers about 29% of one child's annual daycare at the national average. So here's the ugly truth of dual $100,000 earners with 2 kids. In an average American city, after daycare and incremental taxes, the second income contributes maybe $44,000 to the household. In New York, San Francisco, or Boston, it can contribute as little as $10,000 to $20,000 net. One partner is essentially working full-time for the mathematical equivalent of Starbucks money. And then they come home to toddlers they didn't get to see all day with a mortgage and a marriage that desperately needs a vacation nobody can afford. That's not personal failure. That's just what the math does when you do it honestly. At this point, you might be saying, Nick, why don't these people just save more? And the answer is they're trying, but $100,000 earners are up against something that sounds great on paper and falls apart in practice: the tax-advantaged accounts. In 2026, you can put $24,500 into a 401k, $7,500 into an IRA, $4,400 into an HSA if you have the right kind of health plan, $8,750 if it's family coverage, $7,500 into a dependent care FSA. Max all of that out, and you're sheltering around $40,000 from taxes. Sounds amazing. There's just one problem. Maxing your 401k alone eats 24.5% of a $100,000 gross. That's more than most financial advisors recommend people save in total. And that's before rent, food, transportation, insurance, student loans, credit card minimums, and the medical bill your insurance didn't fully cover. So we're telling $100,000 earners they should have $300,000 stashed away by age 40, Fidelity's official benchmark. The median actual balance for Americans aged 35 to 44, just under $40,000, about 13% of target. We're not a country of lazy savers. We're a country of people quietly choosing between retirement and their kids' kindergarten tuition every single month and pretending that's normal. And if you think that's just a problem for people who are clearly struggling, I have one more stat that should genuinely stop you. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent economic well-being report, 17% of households earning over $100,000 say they would struggle to cover a $400 emergency expense. Not $4,000, $400. Nearly 1 in 5 six-figure households cannot absorb a single small financial shock without borrowing, selling something, or putting it on a credit card they won't pay off that month. That's not poverty, that's fragility. That's what happens when every dollar of a high income is already committed before it lands. A flat tire, a pet that needs a vet, a water heater that picks the wrong weekend to die. Any one of those things for nearly 1 in 5 $100,000 households triggers a small financial crisis, because the gap between what their income looks like on paper and what their actual monthly margin looks like is razor thin. These households aren't broke. They're just spoken for. And that's a different kind of trap entirely, because it doesn't feel like poverty. It feels like normal adult life, which is exactly what makes it so hard to escape. So at this point, you've lost tax benefits, you've lost housing options, you've lost margin. The last thing you lose, and this is the one nobody tells you about, is the emotional payoff, the actual feeling of having made it. And there's research on exactly this, and it's more specific than you'd expect. There's a famous study by Kahneman and Deaton from 2010 that said emotional well-being plateaued around $75,000 a year. That study went everywhere. Then a researcher named Matthew Killingsworth did a newer study in 2021 and found happiness actually kept climbing with income. The two findings seemed to contradict each other, so in 2023, the two researchers teamed up and reconciled their results. What they found is genuinely useful. For the least happy 20% of people, well-being plateaus at around $100,000 a year. Above that, more money doesn't buy more joy for them. For everyone else, happiness keeps climbing with income, no plateau. For the happiest 30%, money actually accelerates their happiness after $100,000. Translated into English, $100,000 is the exact salary at which money stops being able to pull you out of misery if you were already miserable, but starts compounding joy if you were already content. Which means the emotional impact of crossing $100,000 is almost entirely about who you already were. The raise doesn't change you, it reveals you. Psychologist Sabrina Romanoff had a line about this that stuck with me. She said, earning doesn't actually make you feel rich. Spending it does. And when you're in accumulation mode, it's very difficult to feel rich. You could be making $400,000, sitting on $1 million portfolio, and if you're still stashing every dollar, your brain will not register wealth. It will register constraint. Because the feeling of wealth is not correlated to your balance. It's correlated to the gap between what you earn and what you feel permitted to spend. So let's pull this all together because I don't want to just depress you for 20 minutes and call it a video. Crossing $100,000 a year does change everything, just not in the direction most people think. It changes your tax profile, it strips away a bunch of quiet benefits you didn't know you had, it raises the expectations of everyone around you, including yourself, to a standard the number can't actually deliver. It drops you into a housing market, a childcare market, and a healthcare market that all assume you can pay full freight, often while you still can't. And it exposes you to the most dangerous financial phenomenon in modern life, which is the illusion that you've arrived. Because the moment you believe that, lifestyle creep takes the wheel, and suddenly you're making 4 times the median American income and still nervously checking your bank balance before a vet visit. So here's what I'd actually tell you to do with this information, because awareness without action is just anxiety with a calculator. 3 things. First, treat $100,000 as a new baseline, not a finish line. The old cultural script is obsolete. The new threshold for actually feeling wealthy in most American cities is closer to $250,000 or $300,000. That might feel discouraging, but it's better to know the real number than to keep believing a 1985 fairy tale. Second, aggressively protect the gap. When you get the raise that pushes you past $100,000, bank the difference before your lifestyle notices it's there. Increase your 401k contribution by whatever percentage that raise represented. Every dollar you don't let lifestyle creep absorb becomes a dollar that compounds for the rest of your life. And third, don't let the gap between what $100,000 was supposed to feel like and what it actually feels like become a grievance. It's just the math. Every generation gets their own version of this. Your parents' $50,000 job bought a house. Your $100,000 job can't. Your kid's $200,000 job probably won't buy what your $100,000 job buys now. The names on the numbers change. The game stays the same. The people who win it are the ones who figure out early that the goal was never the salary. The goal was always the margin between the salary and the life. The day you feel rich will not arrive. Because your paycheck got bigger, it will arrive the first Tuesday you realize your expenses didn't grow as fast as your income did. That's the real threshold. Everything else is just marketing.